success in just 22 minutes. I'm the host of the show, Gary Schwacke. Each and every week, I host a conversation with an experienced professional who shares two insights and the stories behind them that they feel are critical to go-to-market success for growth companies. We will hear from executives and private equity investors with a variety of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. These professionals are working towards exceptional things with real-world constraints and challenges, just like you. If you're tired of marketing and sales hacking and want an authentic, practical guidance on go-to-market success, then this is the show for you. If you can't stick around for the live show, you can get recordings and highlights of all shows by subscribing to the review on our website, 2and22.com. Now, let's jump right into the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of 2 and 22. Very excited and humbled to bring my friend, Bryan Lively, to the show. He's got a wealth of experience across a lot of disciplines, and I think we're going to learn a lot from Bryan's expertise. So let's talk a little bit about Bryan. So going back to all the way to Moosejaw Mountaineering for you outdoor fans, Bryan was the vice president of retail, real estate, and visual merchandising. He spent 12 years there growing the brand from just $4 million in annual sales to over $275 million, and a top 3 e-commerce outdoor retailer before the acquisition of the company by Walmart. That led him then to a completely different industry with Crowdrise, where he was VP of Sales and Customer Success, helping to grow the brand from just $25 million in annual donation volume to over $250 million in just 3 years, 10x in just 3 years. The Crowdrise then sold to GoFundMe in January of 2017. That then took him in another direction, which is with Goldfish Swim School of Franchising, where he was VP of Operations and Technology, helping to grow the brand from 50 units to 103, and the franchise team from 22 to 60, and again, less than 3 years. Bryan's now consulting full-time, bringing his expertise across sales, operations, people development, training, technology, retail, e-commerce, real estate, brand awareness, and merchandising. So we're really excited to have Bryan on the show, and here he is right now. Bryan, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I am great. All right. So I absolutely love the diversity of your background, both in roles and in companies. So to walk us through a little bit that journey. Very different. I think sometimes we're along for the ride in some cases, especially in growth companies, and that gives us the opportunity to expand. But would love to hear how you move from early days of retail and omni-channel commerce all the way through SaaS, software platforms, and then into franchising, which merges those two together. So would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all by chance. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's all through connections and networking is how I, ultimately landed at Moosejaw. I have a background and really grew up as a retail brat, putting myself through school, and through a connection, met the founders and the family that started Moosejaw. Quickly, I think actually even before I started, they started to refer to me as Cuz, short from cousin, and was part of the family before day one. But I think the transition from, brick and mortar and e-commerce retail into SaaS, into franchising, and now having the pleasure of consulting for, all three plus them, is that really learned early on the importance of people and what that meant to the overall organization. So the pleasure of really taking, a handful of small, but had the right structure and skeleton to be fantastic brands and to help, elevate and escalate those through a scalability model, is I think first and foremost, building great teams and allowing others to take part of the responsibility and have a really big impact is super important as well. In early days of startup, you may have, junior members of the team, and then at some point in time, you have to bring some seasoned veterans in place to help scale in a very meaningful way, but still be able to maintain the culture of what that looks like, I think is extremely important as well. And then I think, just my pure sense of curiosity and seeing where the world was continuing to transition is what led from, a true e-commerce platform into a SaaS model and then beyond. I will tell you, again, I feel very fortunate and lucky to have had the pleasure of, being introduced to the founders of Moosejaw and growing and developing that brand. We've probably talked about this a few times, but you consider that first concept, like your own. It's your baby, and you have some great loyalty and want to watch it build. But then at some point in time, you understand the importance of handing it off to the next future leaders and going and starting something new and making impact elsewhere. And I think really ultimately everything can be relatable, across silos and divisions of business if you have the core foundation, at heart and in place.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about this specifically, but and I'm sure it'll come into bear when we get into your insights. But one of the things that I love about the background you have is, and I've experienced some of this myself, is the ability to see the commonalities of macro trends that are impacting a business regardless of which industry vertical it's in, right? You talk about e-commerce and what that means and how people are buying on the website, and then how that's very applicable for B2B sales today, or the omni-channel experience of e-commerce when you think about the brand interaction you would have with a physical franchise location, but then all the digital stuff that goes around it. I think there's so much that we can learn, and it's really easy for companies to get trapped in just thinking about how the little vertical does things, when in reality, the consumers are exposed, whether it's a B2B buyer or a consumer, to so many different things. It's really helpful to look outside of that.
Absolutely.
So that's a great segue to your 2 insights for go-to-market success. Please drop some knowledge for us, Mr. Lively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first one and the most important point, or the insight, is that you're in the people business, regardless, no matter what you may be doing. And the second one that I'd like to stress is to build a brand and not necessarily a business or a business model, but focus on the brand element.
All right. So let's break those down a little bit. Let's talk about the people business. Could be very nebulous, but what are the core components or elements of success as you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that you do within the 4 walls of your model, has a people component to it. So it's making sure that you're bringing in the right bodies, making sure that you're all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. Ultimately, you have to ensure that your team has the same, mission, vision, values, that you're all on the same page there first and foremost, and then you can start to row in that same direction. I think I always have had success by surrounding myself with the best people who are hopefully smarter than I am, and there are certain areas of expertise, and you have to be humble and you have to accept that there's other people in the room that are going to have great successes, but truly make them team successes of their own. So I've seen the best and brightest brands be able to do that, but it all starts with that core component of the people. And then you can actually, once you have that core group of people, you can start to build the brand and what that looks like. So I think that's the first place to start.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point there, and I've seen this time and time again. It's being parts of larger organizations that are growing rapidly. There's almost a freneticism to the pace, sometimes an excitement, sometimes frustration, and the frustration has always come in when you lack that North Star. Like when everybody, there are people there and they want to do a good job, but there really isn't this clear North Star of where we're going, why we're going there, and what's core to just our ethos. And you pointed that out with the mission, vision, values. And a lot of companies, I think, probably underestimate how often they have to repeat that and reinforce that and display that for it to be adopted as core to the company.
Yeah, it's that's a great point, Gary. I think truly write them on the walls, right? The values, the mission, the vision, whatever it may be, they should be part of your daily stand-ups or meetings or your weekly leadership team meetings, whatever it may be. I do think that they have to, be at the core. And you also have to be true to revising them if needed. It's, it might be, you might think it's expensive to go and paint them on the wall and then have to repaint, but as your brand shifts and grows, if it does, be open to what that looks like. I think even, on the people side of it too, is that you may have fantastic humans, very intelligent persons who could be a slam dunk for a role, but they might not be right for the role right now. Right. And making sure that you also continue to evaluate the people so that they are, right people, right seats at the time as well. And sometimes, the position may outgrow the individual, even if they are at their core, culture. But you have to make sure that you continue to evaluate the team, I would say daily from that standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we're about halfway through, believe it or not, of our 22 minutes. And you touched on brand. So let's go to that. You talked about building a brand versus a company. And that term brand can be rather squishy depending upon with whom you speak. But share a little bit, I guess, your experience of where you've seen it. Obviously, you've been part of some great brands. But with maybe perhaps your history as well as some consulting clients that you've had, where you've really seen that brand first focus actually develop the company and not vice versa?
Yeah. No, that's a great question too. And I think the most important piece to remember is that, and I hate to be overly repetitive, but understanding what the core mission is of what you're trying to set out to do is going to help develop that brand, especially early on. So I think that if you can put some real life scenarios around what that looks like, it'll be very, very important for you to do so. So, for a couple of examples, at Moosejaw Mountaineering, we didn't set out to be the, top 3 e-commerce brand for outdoor retail. We set out to be something very special from a community standpoint, to have a quote unquote cult-like following, to really be immersed into what we did was of the utmost importance to us. So a few examples of that would be, I remember the founder, Robert Wolf, telling me basically from day one, I want to be at New York LaGuardia or LAX airports and be walking by with wearing my Moosejaw hat, see somebody else in a Moosejaw hoodie, walk up to them, high five them, keep walking, say 0 words, and both of us will just get it, right?
Yeah.
So that I think is extremely important. Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember, I share that story all the time. So, some friends and friends of friends, they'll come up to me and be like, I had my Moosejaw hat on and I was walking by somebody in Target. I gave them a high five and just kept walking. Perfect. Right? They knew it.
Turns out it wasn't a Moosejaw hat. They had no idea who I was.
Right, exactly. At Crowdrise, we set out to be the social fundraising platform for good from a business standpoint. But our motto was, if you don't give back, no one will like you. So, from that mentality, we could go out and really build the brand and the business simultaneously. But I will tell you, we had, decent human t-shirts, and we did not sell them. You could, accumulate rewards points online by donating or fundraising. But people would get mad at us because they couldn't buy them.
Right.
Well, you have to be a decent human and go and fundraise or donate more, right? We go to the Boston Marathon kickoff meetings and people would be diving and tackling me for the decent human tees. And that's when you've had some true success, you built a brand that everybody wants to be a part of.
Yeah, it's funny you referenced, this is a total tangent, but listened to a podcast recently where Peloton was talking about that with their 100 rides. And you may have one because you're a Peloton person, but that same kind of concept, right? You cannot be bought. You have to earn it. It's part of the community and the importance of that. And also you pointed out too, I think that, to be a top 3 retailer in a category, even if it was a few years ago, is unbelievable accomplishment, right? But the fact that wasn't the goal at the outset, it's a result of a more core vision and purpose, says a lot. And I think a lot of companies lose sight of that, which is really orienting yourself around the market that you serve, the customers within that market, and how you help them advance what they are trying to do. And if you do that and do that well, and of course you got to think about efficiently and things like that, but that pursuit tends to turn out very well versus just going after the number.
Cool. And remember this, and I think this is important to share. It's both internal and external as well, right? I mean, internally, the executive team, we would talk about KPIs and the next board meeting and everything that we had to report on and how are we going to grow business and sales and things like that too. But externally to our teams, we said it every day, all day long. We wanted to be the most fun outdoor retailer in the world. And, Johnny, who is shipping internet orders in the back room, can get on board with being a part of the most fun outdoor retailer in the world. He may not get on board with making sure that we ship 17.1 beanies every hour, right? And that's more fun, right? So you're getting the entire team, on the same page, which I think is important if you're 5 people or 5,000 people.
Yep. So let's break that down a little bit. So we have some of our audience and people who are reading our blogs and things like that may have been in business for 25 years. They're not starting at ground zero. And in many ways, we say that you have a brand whether you like it or not, right? People associate you with something, and now it's really what is it you want to be. If you were at that stage and you were, and I think many companies now with the seismic shifts that have happened in the market over this year are rethinking how they should go to market. Where do you start as you think about either building or revising or enhancing or rebooting a brand?
Yeah, I think it's really, I hate to say it so simply, but I think it's really going back to basics. I think it's taking a step back after 25 years and going and interviewing and chatting, having conversation with the people that are working the presses that may never interact with you. It's going out and talking with the customers and asking, like, how do you perceive us? Not every brand has to be the most fun outdoor retailer in the world, right? Or if you get back, no one will like you. Those are just the brands I choose to associate myself with. But there's many successful brands that can revise, rejuvenate, and or stick to their true model and passion of what makes them a great brand. So, Mopar within, the Chrysler outfit, it's not sexy, but it's very important for my day-to-day operating of my vehicle, right? To have a great experience there. So I really think it's just going back to the basics and getting in tune with the end user.
Yeah, got it. And so let's extrapolate that then to the people process as well, because being in the people business sounds great, and you see a lot of well-intentioned things. I mean, forgive anybody who's listening who really adores their ping pong table. But one of the things is, you see all the companies that slap a ping pong. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
But companies that slap. Well, I was part of a company that had a ping pong table, and that's great, right? Woohoo! It's a great environment. But honestly, if you were actually playing ping pong, you literally felt like you were being, you're a slacker, or it was so anathema to the culture. It was comical. And so what are if you're really thinking about being in the people business and that people are part of your brand and your brand promise and brand delivery, what are some building blocks or tactical things that you can do to start being more intentional about that for a small to medium-sized company that probably doesn't have a large team of, the chief people officer even, or any of those resources available to them to create those things?
Yeah, you may not have me back on the show because you think I'm so simple, but I would say it's really it's conversing with people, right? I have known, and I know so many really, really smart managers of people today, but when I go and ask them, hey, how is Joe doing at home? And, what is Joe's wife's name? Or how many kids does Joe have? They have absolutely no idea.
Just blank stare.
Exactly. And do you work with Joe? And they're like, yeah, every day. I've been managing for 10 years. I'm like, I wonder what Joe thinks of you. But no, I mean, I think it's understanding what motivates Joe. So I do think no matter how big the organization is or small, I think you need to understand what motivates individuals. Individuals are motivated by so many different reasons. It could be the ping pong table and the lack of judgment. The technology team at Moosejaw, once we brought in that ping pong table, was on it all day long every day. And sometimes I was like, geez, these slackers. But the performance of the website was fantastic, right? So they obviously were good balance.
Yes.
But it could be Beer Friday. It could be Go Home Friday. It could be unlimited vacation. It could be compensation, whatever it is. But I really think that you have to know your people and what motivates them. And that doesn't have to conflict with your brand mission or the end result that you're working towards.
Yeah. One thing that I found that back, and by the way, huge fan of simplicity. So you will be back. Simple is actually hard. Right. And that is a case in point here about alignment, is that people at their core, what really motivates them, at least in my experience, is they want to feel like what they're doing matters. Like they are personally growing, but what they do day after day and the people with whom they do it, they enjoy that, but it matters. And where a lot of times the friction and frustration starts is, again, back to that, there's lack of a North Star, or there's an inability to see how what I'm doing makes any difference, or if there's not a responsiveness or attentiveness to things that people all know are problems with the business, but nobody's leaning in to fix. It's some pretty fundamental stuff that creates a difficult environment. And when those things are going well, people they want to win, and they want to be around success, and they want to do it together. And when you can align those things, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think, two things that spur there, and even, this first one from the last comment, authenticity and the knowing that leadership is in it with the entire team goes so far. I would say, I think balance is also key to that too. I was definitely, probably better at this when I was actually younger than what I am now with trying to balance the family. But I think, getting in it with them and saying, okay, hey, you just shipped out 17, beanies to the customers because it's, it's now ski season. I'm going to challenge you. You and I are going to try to, whoever, ships the most beanies in the next hour is going to win this, right? Or is going to just have bragging rights. So I think that is key. And then I think going back to my point of, knowing Joe and Joe's family and what motivates Joe, it has to be authentic. If you come to Joe as a new leader and be like, Joe, what's your wife's name? And you're just it just, people can see right through that.
Can you please fill out this survey for me so that I can come back to you? Yeah,
exactly. I can wish you happy birthday on your birthday, right? It's not about that. It's about, really being authentic and wanting to, be in the people business.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that brings us to our 22-minute close, believe it or not. So 2 questions for you.
Yes.
One, if I'm interested in learning more about Bryan Lively and ACL Squared Consulting, where will I find that information?
Yeah, easiest is to go to LinkedIn and to look at my profile, Bryan with a Y, Lively, or you can reach out to me via email, lively.bryan@gmail.com.
There you go. All right. And the second question, if there was one other person that you would love to see on 2 and 22 share their go-to-market insights, who would that be and why?
Yes, I'm going to go with Dino Varelli, founder and CEO of the charity, pancreatic cancer charity, Project Purple. Okay. I met Dino early in my career at Crowdrise because he was one of the first people within the nonprofit space who I felt was operating like a brand and was making a difference, raising money and creating awareness. And I think he has done just a fantastic job of building Project Purple as a brand that is in a very difficult and uneasy space. So I would definitely reach out to Dino.
Dino, all right, I will. Dino, you're on notice, my friend. We're gonna look out for you. Perfect. All right, excellent. Well, Bryan, thank you for your time, the abundance of it, as you know, and for your insights and for sharing here today. We really appreciate it. And just to recap, so Bryan's 2 insights for go-to-market success. Number 1, you're in the people business. Don't forget that. And number 2, build a brand, not a business. You can catch Bryan's summary and video on 2and22.com. Subscribe there to get monthly updates. You can also catch it on the Yield Group website, yieldgroup.co. And we will have Bryan back again soon. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Thanks, Bryan. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Awesome. I just love spending time with Bryan. He's just the light in the room and a really humble, gracious person. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Anyway, we will see you again next week, and take care. Life is moving fast. So if you missed the live show of 2 and 22, you can get the video recording and highlights by subscribing at 2and22.com. You can also get the audio version by subscribing to the 2 and 22 podcast on your favorite platform. Thanks for spending time with us.